Hello, my name is Lincoln, Program Director here at P3C Pro. Today, I want to talk about the structure of all P3 programs. Now, every P3 program goes through 6 phases: mobility, stability, alignment, strength, power, and conditioning. Now, while I'll talk more in depth about the function of each phase, I first want to just start with the overall structure and how they cycle. Now, each P3 program is 36 weeks in length. That here is this full cycle. Now, each cycle is comprised of 6 6-week phases. Each phase, as you can see, aligns with our phases here. 1, mobility; 2, stability; alignment, strength, power, and conditioning. But within each phase, so within our mobility phase here, we have 6 micro phases, each one 1 week long. And again, we go through our same 6 here. So we have 1 mobility, 2 stability, 3 alignment, strength, power, and conditioning. So as we are cycling through these 36 weeks, we have 6 6-week cycles that are all also cycling through the same phases. Now, each of these phases is designed to build off the last. And as it builds off the last, it increases in intensity in some way or another. So as we work through a 6-week phase, we are gradually ramping up our intensity. And then as we reach the end and we move into our next 6-week phase, we reduce the intensity and provide the body a period of rest and recovery, and then slowly ramp that intensity back up. And then again, as we are going through this 36-week cycle and we are going through these mini phases that are increasing and decreasing in intensity, the entirety of this 36-week cycle is increasing in intensity. Now, each phase, like I mentioned, is designed to build off the last. So our first 3 phases here, mobility, stability, and alignment, these are providing a foundation for your body. The final 3 phases, strength, power, and conditioning, these are where we're focusing on enhancing performance. So we're building off that foundation and we're trying to increase our performance and push past our boundaries from where we've been before. So our mobility phase. Each phase has both a physical, as you can see by the descriptions, but also a psychological significance to it. So mobility is, for one, it's our slowest paced phase. So this is where we are going to recover. This is what I'd consider a rest and recovery phase. But we are also looking to increase our range of motion. So as we can become tight from either training too hard in one way. If you're just strength training, many times you'll find tightness. If you're sitting all day, many times you'll find tightness. So as we increase the length of the muscle, we are actually activating new fibers. But as we're doing this, you got to think, as the muscle is exploring that new range of motion, this is also a period in time where we can be exploring new ways of life. So many times mobility, you got to think in motion. We are going to enter a phase of life where we are taking on something new. Maybe you've learned by now, we move through different chapters in life. So mobility would be like a chapter 1. We are starting over and we are exploring something new in life. Then we move to our second phase, stability. Now, physically, stability is what it sounds like. So as we have activated those new muscle fibers through our mobility phase, now it is time to create a structure. So physically, stability, we're trying to find a connection through a single side of the body, and also we're trying to create a solid foundation. This mentally, though, is where we create new habits and new routines. So as we enter a new phase in life, many times it can become chaotic. When we are in the stability phase, we are looking to create a foundation in this new chapter. As we move into our alignment phase, Now this is where we are trying to connect both sides of the body. So in our stability phase, we have tried to gain a connection through a single side. Now we're connecting right to left, left to right. But there's also the added benefit. When we are connecting the body, we're also connecting the mind. And with that, we are connecting the right and left hemisphere of the brain. Now I'll go into more detail about the importance of that connection in a later video, but just know that as we work through this alignment phase, we're really trying to balance all these new habits in this new chapter or new phase of life. Now this is where we have created our foundation and we move into the strength phase. Now physically speaking, strength is obviously increasing the amount of weight we lift. But strength is building off of the foundation that we've created. And now we are trying to push beyond the limits that we once had. Within life, this is just taking those new habits, creating that balance, and now building strength and building resilience in this new way of life. As we move into our power phase, this is supposed to be our best phase. This is where we are supposed to be moving and feeling our best. This is where physically we'll be doing more explosive style workouts. Your energy should be at its peak. And then mentally, with energy at its peak, you should be able to be your most productive. You should be the most mentally clear, and you should be optimizing everything within this new cycle of life. This foundation that we've built upon and we've strengthened, now we are enhancing it to the best of our abilities. Now that's when we move to the conditioning phase. And the conditioning phase isn't necessarily where we are performing at our best, but it is where we are pushing our limits the most. So physically, this is enhancing cardiovascular and muscular conditioning. This is where we are pushing our limits and we are breaking through barriers that we once believed that we had. But while we are breaking these barriers, we are pushing ourselves to a point of exhaustion, physically and mentally. And because of that, we cannot maintain that level of exertion long term. Now, many people will believe that when they are working at their max capacity, they should work at that all the time. But what happens is then you hit burnout. And what our body and mind really requires is us to regain a level of homeostasis. So that is when we finish this conditioning phase. And when we finish the conditioning microcycle within the conditioning phase, we are at max burnout. And that is why it's absolutely necessary to revert back into our mobility phase and another mobility micro phase. Because when we are at that peak, when we are at that point of breaking, physically, this could be on the verge of injury. Maybe you have tweaked a few things here within this phase because again, you are pushing your limits. It is necessary to now cycle back in to a mobility phase. So this is why every P3 program goes through the same cycles. So no matter if you move from one program to the next, you should always begin in a mobility phase to get the mind and body ready for this new chapter or new cycle of life. And then you will gradually increase in intensity, building the foundation, balancing the foundation, strengthening the foundation, optimizing and enhancing your performance to its peak, and then pushing your limits, and then restarting. So hopefully this description has kind of given you some insight into how we cycle and why we cycle the way we do.